Step into a church in Rome, around the year 1600. For centuries, painters had lit their scenes evenly, politely, every figure easy to see. Then one man walked in and turned off the lights. He drowned the room in black, and aimed a single, brutal beam at the one face that mattered. Light stopped being something you saw by. It became something that chose. It accused. It forgave. These are the painters of darkness. What that one man invented in a Roman chapel would tear across Europe in a single generation, from a murderer in Rome to a grieving master in Amsterdam. We are going to follow that darkness as it spreads, one city at a time. And we are going to look at 7 paintings, slowly, up close, the way they were meant to be seen. Because once you understand what the shadow is hiding, you can never look at these pictures the same way again. It begins, fittingly, with a killer. Most of the paintings in this story were carried far from home, off to museums in distant countries. This one never moved. Caravaggio painted it for a side chapel in Rome, in the church of San Luigi dei Francesi. And there it still hangs, exactly where it was meant to be seen. Caravaggio. The calling of Saint Matthew. Look at the light. It enters from the right, low and dusty, the kind of light that falls through a tavern window in the late afternoon. It crosses the room and lands on a table of men counting money. They have not noticed the 2 figures who just walked in from the shadows. One of them lifts a hand and points. That hand is not an accident. Caravaggio borrowed it, almost finger for finger, from the hand of God giving life to Adam on Michelangelo's ceiling. But here, God is barefoot, standing in shadow, in a grimy room, and the man he is calling is a tax collector. Now, here is the strange part. Look at the faces and ask one simple question. Which of these men is Matthew? For a long time, everyone assumed it was the bearded man in the center, pointing at his own chest, as if to say, "Who, me?" But look again at the young man slumped at the end of the table, still staring down at the coins, as if he has heard nothing at all. Both readings work. Caravaggio painted the exact instant before a life turns, and he left it unresolved on purpose. The light has chosen its man. The man has not yet answered. And that is the whole revolution, in a single beam. Painting was no longer about showing everything at once. It was about aiming. Not the whole room, but the one thing the light decides to touch. We have not left Rome. The dark is still young here, still centered on the one city where Caravaggio is turning the art world upside down. Same painter, same streets, painted only a year or 2 after the last. Before the darkness travels, it first grows deeper, right where it was born. Caravaggio. Judith beheading Holofernes. Everyone who painted this story before showed you the aftermath. A calm woman, a head already on a plate, the horror safely over. Caravaggio refuses. He drags you into the exact second of the act. The sword is halfway through the neck. The blood does not trickle, it jets, in 3 separate arcs, painted by a man who had clearly looked closely at how bodies bleed. And look at Judith's face. This is the strangest choice of all. She is not triumphant. She is not a warrior. She frowns, she leans back, she holds the man at arm's length as if she cannot quite believe her own hands. Caravaggio did not paint a hero. He painted a young woman doing something monstrous and necessary, and hating it. Beside her, an old servant waits with the cloth, her face all hunger and patience. 2 women, 1 act, no glory. And here is the part that turns the stomach. A few years after this, the painter himself would kill a man, in a street brawl, over a game. A death sentence was placed on his head, and he spent his last years running. He did not just imagine this violence. He knew it from the inside. The light does not flatter what it finds. It only refuses to look away. Now the dark moves for the first time, but only a little, from Rome to Florence, carried by a painter who learned Caravaggio's language and then spoke it louder than he ever did. Her name is Artemisia Gentileschi. The technique has found its second master, and this time it is a woman. Artemisia Gentileschi. Judith slaying Holofernes. Put this beside Caravaggio's version and the difference hits you before you can name it. His Judith holds the man away, disgusted, almost apologetic. Artemisia's does not flinch. She rolls up her sleeves. She braces a knee on the bed, pins him down with the full weight of her body, and works the blade like someone finishing a job that has to be done. The maid is not waiting in the shadows. She is in the fight, holding the man down with both arms. Two women, together, overpowering him. This is not the same story told again. It is an argument. And to understand it, you have to know what Artemisia carried. As a young woman, she was raped by a man her father trusted, a fellow painter. She took him to court, in an age when that almost never happened, and during the trial she was tortured, to test whether she was telling the truth. He was barely punished. She picked up her brushes and painted this. No one who looks at these two women soaring through a general's neck can call it a coincidence. She did not inherit Caravaggio's darkness. She sharpened it, and aimed it. Here the darkness finally leaves Italy. It crosses the Alps into France, into a quiet region called Lorraine, and it changes on the way. The violence of Rome falls silent. What arrives in the studio of Georges de la Tour is not a shaft of daylight, but something far smaller and far stranger. A single candle. Georges de la Tour. The Penitent Magdalen. After Rome, this feels like holding your breath. No blood, no blade, no crowd. One woman, one flame, and a silence you can almost hear. La Tour took Caravaggio's idea that a single light can carve a figure out of the dark, and did the opposite with it. Not a spotlight on a murder, but a candle in a room where nothing happens at all. The Magdalene sits with her hand resting on a skull. A mirror throws the candlelight back. And that is the whole picture. She is not weeping, not praying out loud. She is thinking about time, about what a life is worth, with the plainest symbols there are. A flame that will burn down. A skull that used to be a face. This is tenebrism turned inward. The darkness is no longer where danger hides. It is where a person goes to be honest with herself. And there is something fitting in what happened next. The man who painted this quiet so perfectly was swallowed by an even deeper one. Forgotten for 3 centuries, as if the candle had simply been blown out. The light did not shout here. It waited. And so did he. The dark splits and heads south, down to Naples, a city ruled from Spain and boiling with Caravaggio's followers. Here it meets a Spaniard, Jusepe de Ribera, who takes the style and strips away every soft thing left in it. If La Tour made the darkness whisper, Ribera makes it grip. Jusepe de Ribera. The Martyrdom of Saint Philip. Ribera does not let you look away, and he does not let you look comfortably. A man is being hauled up onto a cross, not nailed in place yet, but pulled by ropes, his arms dragged wide by workers straining at the other end. It is the moment before, the worst moment, when the body still knows exactly what is coming. And Ribera lights it like an interrogation. Hard light on old skin, on the ribs, on the rope biting into the wrist. No idealized hero here, no smooth marble body. This is an aging man, a real one, with a laborer's hands and a laborer's fear. That was Ribera's whole conviction. Not that suffering was beautiful, but that it was true, and that truth was worth painting without mercy. Caravaggio had shown Europe that light could be a spotlight. Ribera showed it could be a scalpel. For centuries people even had the saint's name wrong, so little did the story matter next to the sheer fact of the flesh. Because that is what he wanted you to feel first. Not the theology. The weight of a body, held up to the light, with nowhere to hide. The darkness reaches the far north now, to Amsterdam, a Protestant merchant city with no popes and no altarpieces. Here it lands on a young painter, 26 years old, newly arrived and hungry. His name is Rembrandt, and he is about to turn Caravaggio's single light into something no Italian had imagined. A room full of people. Rembrandt. The anatomy lesson of Dr. Nicolaes Tulp. By now you know how this light works. It picks one thing out of the black and holds it there. Rembrandt's genius was to ask a harder question. What if the light has to organize not one figure, but a whole crowd, and make sense of them all at once? This is a group portrait, the most boring job a painter could take. A row of men who each paid to have their face included, usually lined up like a team photograph. Rembrandt refuses the row. He builds a scene. At the center, a corpse, the body of an executed criminal, laid out under a cold light. Dr. Tulp lifts the muscles of the forearm with a pair of forceps, mid-sentence, mid-lecture. And the surgeons lean in, not posing, but caught in the act of understanding, each face turned by curiosity into a slightly different angle of the same light. One looks at the arm. One looks at the book. One looks straight out at you. The darkness does not just isolate here. It composes. It takes 8 separate men and a dead one, and binds them into a single held breath. Caravaggio lit a moment. Rembrandt, at 26, lit a room, and made it think. We end where the last painting left us, in Amsterdam, with the same painter. But almost 40 years have passed. The young man who lit the dissection is now old, bankrupt, and has buried the people he loved. The map does not move. The light does. This is the last thing the darkness learns to do. Rembrandt. The return of the prodigal son. We started this story with a severed head. We end it with an embrace. The same light, the same darkness, 40 years and one whole life apart. A son comes home, ruined. His clothes are rags, one shoe has fallen off, his head is shaved like a prisoner's. He kneels and buries his face in his father's chest. And the old man simply folds his hands over his son's back and holds him. That is all that happens. After the murders and the martyrs, after the blade and the corpse, the darkness has learned to do the gentlest thing it knows. Look closely at the father's 2 hands, and you find Rembrandt's last quiet secret. They are not the same. One is broad and strong, a father's hand. The other is slimmer, softer, almost a mother's. As if all the tenderness a person could need were resting on one back at once. This is not the light that accuses. It is the light that forgives. Caravaggio used the dark to show us the worst we can do. Rembrandt, at the end, used the very same dark to show us the most we can be forgiven. The spotlight became a shelter. And the story that began with a killing, ends, finally, in mercy.